Hi there, everybody. Welcome to my kitchen. It is Tuesday and you are cooking with Evie. I'm not sure whether the video started before. I seem to be having video problems with Facebook. I'm not sure if Facebook likes me anymore. Anyway, today we are making a wonderful tabbouleh salad that instead of using the traditional bulgur wheat, I am using quinoa. The reason I do that is quinoa is gluten-free. It's also considered a whole protein. So especially if you're vegetarian, this is a great dish that you can make that makes a full meal without having to add a meat protein. If you would like a little meat protein to it, it goes well with some grilled chicken or some grilled fish. So let's get started. So to begin, I made some quinoa ahead of time by adding 1 cup of quinoa to 2 cups of chicken broth, and I let that cook for 20 minutes. I brought it up to a boil and let it cook for 20 minutes. Nice, quick, like rice, you want to leave the lid on the pot. You don't want to take that lid off. And then once it's cooked, I just let it sit for a little bit and then fluff it with a fork. So as you can see, my quinoa here is ready to go. My pot is cooled off. That's one ingredient down. You may have seen earlier today too, I made some roasted beets to go with this dish, which is another nice addition to the tabbouleh, which is not necessarily traditional. By the way, I got this recipe from Dr. Andrew Weil's cookbook. So this is an adaptation of his recipe. Dr. Andrew Weil is the father of anti-inflammatory medicine, integrated medicine. So I'm so glad to be able to use this recipe and share it with you. So roasted beets, let's get back to that. So what I did earlier today, hopefully you saw the video, was I roasted up about a pound of beets. And I have them here. I'm going to bring over my secondary chopping block. As you can see, beets can be very messy. So I like to chop my beets and do everything with my beets on a separate cutting board. So this was a packet that I roasted earlier today. I put it in the oven at 400 degrees and cooked it for about 30 to 40 minutes. It was probably about 40 minutes when it was all said and done. Then I let it sit and cool. And if you saw the video, you know that I did not peel the beets. So I'm going to show you what I do just to peel these beets. I did add a little bit of oil. You can add a pinch of salt if you'd like. I'm actually going to put on some gloves to do this because they can get a little messy. I like to have these, aren't these great? Little designer gloves. But what you can do then is just take your beet and literally peel the skin right off. This is a way to keep it a little bit easier, a little bit neater. Some people are intimidated by the thought of roasting beets because they feel that it can be very difficult. It's really very easy. I cut my beets ahead of time because they were rather large. If you have smaller beets, you don't even need to cut them ahead of time. But it does, the smaller the pieces that you have, the quicker it will cut. The quicker it will cook. So as I said, I have about a half pound of beets here, which probably is about 2 medium-sized beets. Look how quick and easy that is. Now, if I didn't have my gloves on, I would be walking around with pink fingers for a few days. It does make it a lot easier to do this way. All right, let's get rid of those. So now you can see I have my beets here, nice and peeled. I'm going then to chop them into a smaller size. So I'm going to get my hands a little bit dirty here, but I want to make them into nice little bite-sized pieces. And because I chopped them up ahead of time, it's a little tricky to get them down. But I want to get them to about 1/2 inch cubes. Not a very elegant way of doing it here. I'm trying not to touch them too much so our hands don't turn all pink. Here we go. Now, if you don't want to roast your beets, or say you don't have time to roast beets, another way to do this is to use canned beets. And instead of just putting them directly into the dish, what I like to do is pan roast them for a few minutes in a saute pan. So I'll just put them into a saute pan without oil and just saute them until they brown on the outsides a little bit. It helps bring out the flavor of the beet a little bit more. Just a little tip if you don't have time or the desire to roast your beets. All right. Okay, so I'd hold this up to show you, except I don't want to get my hands all dirty. Let me give my hands a little rinse here. All right, but let me show you this way. Here we have our roasted beets. I'm going to set those aside for later on. All right, I've got my quinoa made now. I've got my beets already roasted and ready to go. What other ingredients go into this tabbouleh? We have green onions or scallions that are going to go in. We have some fresh mint, yum. A nice bright flavor to add into this. I have some parsley. You can also use cilantro if you like cilantro. I'm going to add a pinch of red pepper flakes. I'm going to make up a dressing with lemon and olive oil. So let me start by prepping my scallions. You probably noticed that I had already prepped my mint and my parsley. Here's the parsley. I love to store my parsley in the refrigerator and cilantro in the refrigerator with a little bit of water, and then I'll put a plastic bag on top, and this will keep for a week in there. And I also bought some organic mint at the grocery store. My mint is not quite up yet, so I had to buy some. But I almost forgot one of the best ingredients. Which is going to add a sweet tart little bite to our dish. Pomegranate seeds. And I bought a whole pomegranate and de-seeded half the pomegranate, so I'll use about half the pomegranate. But here is the other half of the pomegranate it's got some seeds just popping right out. But I just wanted to show you how I cut a pomegranate. So if this is the bottom of the pomegranate, this is the top. I just cut down, as you can see, a little bit down. And then what I'll do is I will pull those quarters away. So I'll have each a quarter of a pomegranate. And then what I can do is I'll just take these and pull the paper out and just kind of pluck the seeds out with my finger. This works really well so that you don't cut into the seeds and it doesn't get all juicy then. Once you cut into the seed, it gets a little messy with the juice. Once again, we're trying to keep it a little bit neat. So I've got my pomegranates ready to go here. And then, of course, I wanted to mention, too, we'll be putting in some slivered almonds, toasted slivered almonds. But for now, let's get back to prepping our scallions. I'm going to use the whites of the scallion, and I'm chopping them fairly thinly. And I'll use a little bit of the green tops. These scallions are not very tough. Sometimes you'll get some that are very mature and the green tops are a little bit tough. You probably don't want to use those. So I'm going to save this for making some broth later on. But in the meantime, I'm going to put my chopped scallion into a little dish here, little cup, so I can put it to the side. Okay, so I have my scallions, I have my mint, I have my parsley, all ready to go. Now, what we need to do is make our dressing. So let me grab a bowl. So I'm going to combine everything in this bowl, but I'm going to make the dressing in the bowl right here, make it a little bit easy. And what we need to for that is some fresh lemon juice. I need about 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. And for that, probably don't even need half of a medium-sized to large lemon. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze the juice into a separate bowl, just in case I don't need all of the juice that comes out. I've had this lemon out of the refrigerator so that it's nice and juicy now. You'll find that a warmer lemon will liberate its juice a lot more quickly than a cold lemon will do. And I poke it with a fork just to break up some of those cells, those juice cells. Let's see how we did. One and 2. So just about a half a lemon was just what I needed. Perfect. All right, I'm going to then add in some of my olive oil. I want to add in about a 1/4 cup of my olive oil. And I'm going to just measure that out. Make it easy. Usual rule is 2 parts olive oil or 3 parts olive oil to 1 part of your acids. In this case, our lemon juice is our acid. And to that, I want to add in some garlic. So I'm going to take 2 medium-sized cloves of garlic. Let's see if I can get some off here. Let's move some of this to the side. I can move this out of the way now. All right. So, well, let's see. I'm going to get some medium-sized cloves here. That's good. So I have 2 medium-sized cloves of garlic. And I want, because it's going into my dressing, I want to have it nice and finely minced. I'm looking for my mincer. I don't use it very often. Here it is. It was hiding. But I have this wonderful mincer that I like that you can actually take out the cup to clean it. So I want to remove my skins. And this also came with this fun little roller. You put your clove in there and you roll it, and it takes the paper off. Well, it's supposed to take the paper off. It did a decent job. Let's see whether we can get it in there again. There we go. And I'm just going to cut my clove in half and squeeze it into my lemon juice and olive oil. I know that knife is a little bit bigger than what I needed. All right. And here's our second clove of garlic that came out. I'm just going to cut that into 3 pieces because it's a little bit bigger. And put it in. I find that if I pre-cut it like that a little bit, it makes it easier to mince. There we go. Oh, that's beautiful. There we have it. All right, let me just clear that off. Wonderful. All right. And then now I had salt in my broth when I cooked my quinoa. So I don't think I'm going to add more salt to my dressing right now. I may decide to add a little bit later on, but I'm going to hold off. Typically I would add about a quart. If you use water for your quinoa, which you're welcome to do, you could add at this point about a quarter teaspoon of salt as well. But I will add a little bit of pepper. My pepper mill is very slow, but I'm going to add in about, I would say about 1/8 of a teaspoon of fresh ground pepper. And a pinch of some red pepper flakes. Typically a pinch, anywhere from a 1/16 to 1/8 of a teaspoon. All right, so I'm just going to whisk this together. It smells deliciously of garlic. But you can see I have a nice vinaigrette here. All right, to which I now want to add all of my other ingredients. So remember, I have my quinoa. Let me add in my arugula first. Now I have about 1 ounce of arugula here. So it's about a handful, a good sized handful of arugula. And I'm just going to tear it. It's baby arugula, so the leaves are fairly small. I'm just going to give it a little tear here. All right. So I've added in my arugula now. I'm going to add in my quinoa. Now, I've made up, remember, 1 cup of quinoa to 2 cups of broth, which brings that to about 3 cups of cooked quinoa. All right. Then I'm going to add in about a 1/4 cup of my chopped parsley and about 2 tablespoons of chopped mint. I have a little bit more. I like mint in it, so I added a little bit more. I'm going to add in those chopped scallions. And then I'm going to give it a toss. Let me get another. Here we go. So tabbouleh traditionally is a grain-based salad. It's a Mediterranean dish, anti-inflammatory. What makes it anti-inflammatory? Those wonderful beets that we're going to add in. The wonderful greens, arugula in particular, very anti-inflammatory. It keeps inflammation down. It helps fight the oxidation that happens in our body that causes damage to our cells. So by eating these healthy foods, it helps to repair our cells, helps them function properly, and basically helps us age more slowly, which is what we want. What does the opposite? The opposite are sugar-laden foods, highly processed foods that tend to age us more quickly. So every time we're tossing up a healthy salad like this, just think of it as an anti-aging dish. At least I like to think of it that way. Oh boy, does this smell good. Okay, so at this point, let me just go over the ingredients. We had our quinoa that we added in. We have our parsley, our mint, scallions, and arugula. We made up our vinaigrette with lemon juice and olive oil. I'm just going to take a little taste here and see if I want to add some salt to this. I'm going to add in a little bit. Add in a pinch. All right. Give it a toss. All right. Now, we could plate our dish and then add the pomegranate and the almonds on top. I like to mix them in. I always like to mix it, but I'll reserve a little bit afterwards just to sprinkle on top. So I'm going to add in about my quarter of a pomegranate. And then I'm going to add in my slivered almonds. These are toasted. I love the toasting of the almonds. It adds a little bit extra flavor to it. I'm going to add in about 2 tablespoons worth. I'm not going to measure it. I'm just going to go into estimate. It's probably about coming to the bottom of my bag. All right, I'm going to give that a nice toss. All right, now we're ready to plate that. Let's see. Let me see. I'm just going to put it on a red plate, but let's put it on a white plate instead. Clear off some of our dishes here. And you'll notice that the quinoa turned a wonderful pink color. Now, typically in tabbouleh, you don't necessarily see that, but it's because we added our roasted beets to it. Now, if you wanted to, you could add a few leaves to the top. And I'll sprinkle a couple of our almonds on top and some of our reserved pomegranates on top. All right. And there you have our finished dish. So let's taste it, all right? That's the real test. Mmm. Mmm. I love those pomegranates. They just kind of pop in your mouth. Delicious. Absolutely delicious. You know, after my cooking classes, I usually end up eating all of my finished dishes before dinner. But this is really, really good. I hope you get a chance to try to make it. As I said, if you want to, I mean, I would say this is probably about 6 serving sizes. But if you're making it for a meal, you know, you could make it 4 serving sizes and fill up that plate. But it will be very filling because of the quinoa that's in there. And those beets, as I said, highly antioxidizing. There's betaine in the beets, which is known to help with inflammation. And what more can I say? Not much. I hope you enjoyed our program today. Let me know if you make the dish. If you have a suggestion on a dish you'd like to see, please suggest it to me. Leave it in the comment section. Or if you have a recipe that you want to make more anti-inflammatory and a little bit more healthier, let me know. If you have any questions on what makes a dish anti-inflammatory, please ask the question in the comment section, or IM me, private message me, and I can help you out and let you know. So until next week, please stay healthy, and I will see you next week with another anti-inflammatory, anti-aging dish. Take care for now. Enjoy. Bye-bye.